lot of Christians ask me, why don't you believe in Paul's conversion story? I'm not saying I don't believe Paul may have encountered Jesus in a vision on the road to Damascus, because Jesus essentially just rebukes Paul for killing his Nazarene followers and strikes him blind.
Jesus doesn't just rebuke Paul, even if he did. Let's just say he does. But he asks Paul a question, a very serious question nonetheless. Paul, why are you persecuting me? Saying that Paul is fighting against God or against the Christians at the time. And then Paul asks him, well, what do you want me to do, after a simple conversation? And Jesus says, well, go into the next town and I'll tell you.
But here's the real problem. In Acts 9, Paul says that he saw a light and heard a voice which knocked him down. But his traveling companions did not see anything. They only heard a voice.
Now here's my first problem with what this man says is, one, that's not Paul talking. That is Barnabas.
Then, when Paul retells his story in chapter 22, he reverses the details and says that his travelers saw the light, but did not hear a voice.
Now, from my knowledge, this is the first time Paul's actually stating his story. So, the first time around in Acts 9, that was Luke's telling of the account. The second time, which this gentleman's speaking about, is Paul actually saying it. In Luke, it says that they heard a voice. Now, in Paul, he said that they did not hear a voice, but we had to look at the Greek for this one, and it is akuio, which means to listen, to hear, or to understand. Now, the first time with this word that's being used, it's used as to hear or to listen. The second time this being used is to understand. So a better reading of this would be, and they that were with me saw indeed the light and were afraid, but they did not understand the voice of him that spoke to me, which makes sense because they didn't understand what was going on.
And then, to make matters worse, in Acts chapter 26, Paul contradicts both of his first two accounts and says that everybody saw the light and everybody heard the voice and everybody fell to the ground.
Paul's really only spoken one time about this confession, and he's only said it one time because the other two either was Barnabas or Luke when they mentioned it. So what's going on? Acts chapter 26. Well, it's just a better explanation of what's going on. Just because Paul's explaining a little bit more details to what happened does not say that what happened in the other times was false. A contradiction is when we understand that one person was there and the next person wasn't. So if Paul said, well, I was there and the other two people weren't, and then another passage says, well, I was there and the other two people were, that is a contradiction. If Paul says, or Luke says, yes, there was a light around me and I fell to my face, and the other one says, well, there was a light around us and we fell, that's not a contradiction, because one didn't say only was around me. It said, well, I was there and there was a light and I fell to my face. Well, I can fall to my face and there was still a light there, while the other ones were there with a light and they fell to their face. But I don't have to mention them if I don't want to. That's still not a contradiction. So we have to really understand scripture, and we have to understand the context of what's going on and what truly is a contradiction.